Thank you. Leah's going to say a few words to get started.
Hello everybody, my name is Leah. I'm on the IWCC Board of Directors, as well as Katie, and there are a bunch of us in the room here. I'm sure you'll see us throughout the night. First, I want to say thank you for everyone for coming. This is a full house and we're very happy. So round of applause for all of you for coming out in this cold weather. Just a few things. If you are posting on social media, please tag the IWCC. It's at IWCC Helps on Instagram, just so we can repost, and we want to share as much as possible. Also, just if you haven't already, you can get a photo on the red carpet, whether you're a member or a non-member. Yes, a member or a non-member. So make sure that happens. And if you are a member and have not yet gotten an interview on the red carpet, you're able to do that if you so choose. And I think that's everything. So I'm going to pass it over to Katie.
Woo! Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks guys. So I just wanted to do a quick thank you to my old friend, Jay Jolly. He donated the space for this event. So we're very grateful to him. It's very exciting. So this is like a new space and a bunch of creative people are all in on it together. There's Jay. There's Jeffrey Remediosi from Arts and Crafts, and he's head of Universal Music Canada, Yannick Bisson, and Gary Slate. So yeah, these are very kind folks. They're renovating this space. It's going to be a capacity for 200 people, and it's going to be open next year. It's also open for events now, so if anyone needs a space, go and talk to Jay. And yeah, I'd also like to just thank all of the board members and the volunteers for tonight. So our photographers, our red carpet interviewer, they all camera, everyone came out and donated their time. So thank you guys so much. Woo! Woo! All right, so there's a little bit of feedback on this. Okay, so I would like to introduce our very special guest, Andra Sheffer. So she's been the CEO of two private funds supporting the Canadian digital media, television, and film industries, the IPF, which invests in drama series created for digital platforms, as well as the Cogeco Program Development Fund for the development and production of television drama. She was the founding executive director of the Bell Fund. She was also the founding executive director of the Academy of Canadian Film and Television. She lectures on the business of TV and digital media, and is the editor of publications about the business of TV and digital media production. She's also served as a managing director of the Toronto International Film Festival, and among many other accolades, there are so many, she's also inducted as an industry builder into the Playback Hall of Fame. She's been at the IPF as a CEO for 28 years, and she is retiring at the end of December. We're so honored to have her here. So everyone give Andra a warm welcome, please. Okay. Great, so welcome. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so let's kind of, I feel like this mic is this okay? Is that what's happening?
If you put it closer, yeah, I can ride the levels. You guys let me know when you're
Okay. I hear something. Great. Okay, so let's maybe we'll do a testing first.
Yeah.
Testing. Hello, hello, hello. Whew. Hello, hello. Is that okay? Is that better?
Yeah.
Maybe if
Yes.
I just don't move too much? Okay, cool. All right, so I thought that we would start this out with hearing a little bit about how you got into the digital space specifically, and what really, got you excited about the digital space.
Okay, so the digital space was a big mystery to me. I had no idea what it was all about, and I really didn't know any of the terminology or anything. In 1997, with the Bell Fund. So the Bell Fund was just a new fund being set up by Bell Canada, and they needed someone to administer it. And I was already running the independent production fund, but it was part-time. So I offered the IPF as an administrator of the Bell Fund. At that point, we didn't know what it was going to even be, but the Bell Fund soon developed its own mandate, which was cross-platform, interactive digital media. So I quickly learned what those words meant, because I really didn't know. and had a crash course in digital media that way. So I did the Bell Fund for many years, and as I was doing that, other things were developing in the industry. The IPF was funding television drama, and the IPF budget wasn't really big enough to really make a difference. And we started hearing about this weird thing called web series, and started getting really intrigued by what that actually was. And it wasn't big budget, and our fund could probably afford to make a difference in that area. So my colleague in Montreal and I, we pitched our board of directors on changing from funding television drama to funding web digital drama, series, scripted. And our big task was to show them what was a web series. And we searched on the web for some examples, and there really was only one or two that we could find. Remember the IKEA one? I think that was one of the first ones. And we showed that to our board so they would actually understand what it was. So this was 2010, not very long ago. And web series did not exist before that. And so the board was convinced that this was something exciting that we could do, that we could really lead the industry and really help develop new talent. And that's how we got into the digital web series world, which I also learned on the job. And I am still learning because it is always changing.
Great. And from those early days of web series in, circa 2010 till now, in what ways in particular have you seen the biggest changes?
It truly is amazing, the changes. Interactive digital media was the big thing from 1997 till about 2015. That was the thing, and Canada was a leader, and the Bell Fund was making a lot of that possible. And then suddenly it just died because the CMF changed things. Broadcasters didn't want to do it anymore, and it wasn't making money, which everyone thought it was going to do. And so it suddenly became a much more minor part of our industry. And then web series, which started off being really, really low budget, and everybody did them in a few months, and it was quick and easy and fast, and they got them out there. That's changed a lot too. So now everybody wants to have a lot of money to do it. They need to take more time to do it. There's good and bad to that, which we can discuss, but huge change. So the projects that we funded 10 years ago in 2010 would not be funded today because they are just not appropriate for the audiences. They don't have the creative skill, they don't have the technical ability, but and the business for sure has come from, let's put it on the web and hope people watch it, to how we going to promote this, market, all of that has become such big business now.
Absolutely. And just a show of hands out in the audience, I know, how many film students do we have? I know we had some students that came out. Okay, so a couple. And then how many actors do we have here? We have some actors. And how many producers do we have here? Or maybe aspiring producers? Okay, great. So it's a real nice mix. So, if you're, an emerging storyteller, what do you think, why web series as a medium? Because, there's short film, you could write a TV pilot, there's so many different things we have access to.
Web series seems to be the go-to thing now, especially for performers. And I really see we fund a lot of performers/producers. And I think it's because they're trying to broaden, they're not sitting around by the phone and waiting for a call to perform somewhere. They want to create roles that they think are good for themselves. They want to write, they want to learn about the behind the scenes. So a lot of performers are going to the web series, and I think web series are are very interesting because it's a series for one thing. You learn so much, and if you just doing one episode is not the same as doing 6 or 8 of them, and having a whole body of work is very interesting to people, I think. And a series can beget a second season and another series. And it's really a great way to learn, to prove yourself, maybe to establish a track record for you as a company, to go around the world and meet partners for future projects, to win awards so that you get recognition and acclaim, which then gets you in to meet, the Netflixes of the world would be, your next objective. But I think it's being used really well by a lot of new talent to further their own gains. They're not doing it to get rich. I don't want to lead anybody down the garden path here. But there are lots of other advantages, and I think it's being used really well by people for many of those reasons.
And there's an exciting new program at the IPF. So you've done a collaboration with the Canada Media Fund for the Development Packaging Program. So can you tell us a little bit about this program in particular? I feel like we're getting a lot of feedback. Jay? Is there anything we can do?
It might be,
base.
maybe just scoot your chair over so it's not pointing in front of the speaker.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, we'll put it over here. Maybe over just a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Ooh. Right. Yeah, I know, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Is that a little bit better?
Yes.
All right, okay.
Okay, our new program is development and packaging. And the reason we created this was because we were discovering that we funded projects for production with $150,000, and we expected producers who had applied to us with their scripts and with all their financing and all their budget, we expected them to be ready to go into production. And required they go into production within a few months of funding. But the reality became very clear with many of the projects that they would come back to us after 3 months and say, well, we're changing our script, we're waiting for money from the Ontario Creates, we want to double our budget. Things would change dramatically, and the actual development was taking place at the production stage. And that's probably not the best way to do these things. So we thought that maybe we would try to help focus everyone on the development stage. So what's happening now is, I don't know how many of you are aware, but we had 2 phases to our application process. So in the past, we got 180 applications, and they were basically getting a 2-page creative, 1-page marketing plan, and a proof of concept video. So we're now not requiring the proof of concept video. You still have to do creative marketing, but you do have to have a few other things. And in particular, what we're looking for is a script editor or development executive on the team. And so now, you still go through that first phase. You will select 20 or so shortlisted projects. And those projects, instead of having 1 month to put together an application for production, will now have 4 or 5 months and $30,000 to properly develop the project. And the deliverables in that development and packaging stage are pretty intense. You'll find them all on our website, but it is scripts, it is financing, it is marketing, it is, at that point you do a proof of concept video. It is analysis of the analytics from that video and how it will inform your project. But we want people to take the development seriously. So that's why it's $30,000. So people who still have day jobs are not going to be eligible. This has got to be your job. This is what you got to do. Focus on it for a few months, really decide how it's going to work. And so when we say you're funded, you're basically ready to go into production. That's the idea. Hopefully it will work. But it's going to be interesting to go through it this first year. But you can see that we are really determined to try to raise that creative level. That's where we've seen probably the biggest weakness, is that people rush into the scripts and they think that their friend can edit it. And it's just, we need to have a little bit of professionalism in this. So we hope that you will be able to find good script editors or good development executives who will really take this seriously and work on it and make it the very best it could be. Not just, we're tired of hearing, oh, if I only had another month, it would have been fun. No, I don't want to hear that anymore. I want to know that you had the time to get it to the point where you really are happy with it all.
And when it comes to the application process, in particular, is there a certain element of it, whether it's the creative or the marketing or the budgeting, where is a more common kind of weakness for for people who are putting in applications? Like, is there something in particular that you think to kind of look out for if you're applying to the IPF?
You know, everybody has different weaknesses, so they are kind of spread around. But the creative is obviously the main one. The first thing that grabs evaluators is the creative. That's what they look at first and foremost. Is it exciting? Is it different? Is it original? You know, that you have your act together. Does it make sense? Is it gonna? And you know, when you see 180 applications, it's a bell curve. You know, you can see the 10 that really stand out amongst all of them. And you see the 10 that are real duds, you know, they just aren't going to go any further. And then there's all those other ones that are in the middle that some people like, some people don't. But it's the creative. We don't even get serious about the business unless the creative has grabbed us. And that's just the reality with evaluators. You know, they have to just feel that there's something really special, that this has got potential. And then they'll delve into all the other things. And no, you have to stand out. It's so competitive, obviously. You have to stand out. And when there's thematic years, like we've had years where it was all zombie applications or, you know, vampires, you know, the angst of being a student just out of university, you know. You know, we're looking for something different. And that's really important. You know, how can you be original? How do you stand out and catch the attention of evaluators? Because we have in that first phase we have 40 different evaluators usually looking at all of this stuff, and they rank everything, and then we take the top 30 or 40 and they get together in groups and discuss them.
Oh, am I doing this? Oh, gosh, Jason. Thank you. Jason Lever, everyone.
So, yeah, stand out in the crowd because, you know, when people are talking and looking at things, it just takes a couple of people to get really excited about it to convince all the other evaluators that it's really worth being excited about it.
And is there a particular genre or genres that you think do better or that, you know, you're more drawn to?
You know, comedy is the most popular, for sure, but it is also the hardest one to stand out in the market, to really make the market internationally. But specific niche ones are really great too. So the sci-fis and the horror thrillers, they have their markets, they have their own festivals, they have, you know, their own very specific platforms and audiences. And it's maybe smaller, but it's the audience that you want, that are passionate and fanatics about this stuff. And once you reach that audience, you know, you've got the influencers and the people in there that will make your project a success. And we've seen successes in all the genres, actually. Comedy, although it's the most common, is probably the hardest one to do. It's really hard to be really funny, as you might have noticed.
And along those lines of marketing strategy specifically, because online there's so. Pardon me?
Closer to the mic.
Closer to the mic? Oh, there we go. So yeah, because there's so much content online, it can be hard to stand out. What have you seen in terms of marketing your show that has really worked the best?
People are spending more and more money on marketing, and sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. We actually, interestingly, in the reports we're getting back from people lately, are finding that ads or online ads are actually paying off. You know, Facebook and probably is paying, depending on where you are putting your series, but it doesn't cost a lot and it seems to be very effective. And we can see the blips when there's ads placed. Whether people stay on the series once they come to it is another question. You know, it has to catch their attention, but it seems to drive. So that was interesting because we didn't really believe that ads would do that. So you don't spend a lot of money on it, but it can be done. You also need a professional who really knows how to do this. There are different assets required for every one of the platforms. You know, Instagram, your Twitter, your Facebook, everything is going to need a different approach, a different material, lots of supplementary content way beyond just having your series. And there are companies now who really specialize in this and are gathering together while you're in production all the content that you will need for all of your promotion and all of your different platforms. There are huge data banks of assets and databases to store all the assets so you can pull them out at the right time and send them off at the right time. They're getting pretty sophisticated. So it is worth involving someone on your team who really knows how to do that. And also, you as producers or as the creators, you've got to be involved all the time, from day one right till years after you launch the thing. It's that personal relationship you establish with your fans that really, really makes a difference. They love it when they know that you're paying attention to them and that they get excited and they think that they have an influence on you and all that kind of stuff. And that means spending a lot of time on it, or hiring somebody who tends their you and they spend a lot of time on it. Making sure all your cast and crew in their contract, make sure you sign them up that they're going to tweet or they're going to do something for, you know, the next 6 months after the project is finished. You really have to involve the entire team. But that personal contact is very powerful.
And there's so many different platforms, you know, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, there's Sika TV in the States. Quibi is a new one that people are pretty excited about. Are there any, do you have any advice in terms of platforms specifically? Are there any that you are really excited about?
You know, it's so hard getting the right platform. That is probably the ultimate test of all of this. Quibi, I don't think you should count on Quibi. Quibi right now is, you know, multi-million-dollar web series that are being made into feature films, and you know, Steven Spielberg is doing one. Every one of them has a big name attached somewhere, so don't count on that for a while. I think what they will discover there, though, is that in a few years they want to do lower budget ones, so maybe there'll be opportunities for Canadians. I don't know. The platforms come and go. I do recommend that if you hear of a new platform that's appropriate for your kind of target audience, that you get in with them early on. They may not be there in 2 years, so you want to be there while they still have money in deep pockets and are willing to spend and buy content. So take advantage while they're there. There are specialty ones, and think about all the specialty ones. That, you know, if you have an LGBTQ project, you can go to Reverie. They have the target audience that you want. So you've got to do your research, get out there, find where your audience already exists. It's very hard to do your own website. It's because you have to basically promote it fresh. It's much nicer if you're on an established platform that already has a big audience. You still have to do lots of promotion to stand out even on those websites, but you have more of an opportunity because you know the target audience is already there.
And you've seen this space change so much. Where do you have an idea? Where do you think it's going? What do you think it'll look like in 10 years from now? Do you think it'll be similar, or
I wish I had that kind of vision. It's from 10 years ago till now. When we started 10 years ago, we really thought this was going to be a big booming business and that everybody would be making money on it. And that reality has not happened, unless any of you can tell me otherwise. So what it'll be 10 years from now, I don't know 10 years from now, but in the next few years, I think it's evolving into becoming pilots for potential films or TV series. I think it's being used as proof of concept for things, and then that's where it's going to play an important role. I think the budgets are certainly going to get a little higher. You know, everybody wants, great post-production, great visuals. Although I have to say that one of the things that is very clear to me is that the cinematography is almost irrelevant on most of these web series because people are watching them on their little screens. What's really, really important is the sound, because if they can't hear it, they turn it off. But we've tested this, we've seen this over and over again now. And if you've got great content, they'll watch, fuzzy stuff. It's really, that's just not that important. I think it would be different if you were doing, documentary for National Geographic as a web series, but not for these kinds of scripted web series. So focus on the sound
Spend
and
your
on the
money.
content.
Yeah.
Sorry, cameraman in the audience.
So we have a few students here as well. If you're, a student and you just got out of film school and you're kind of learning about the IPF gives equity to a project. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
First of all, under the new development program, those are going to be what we call advances. So if you actually go into production, you're going to either pay part of it back at some point or other, there's different levels, or it'll be turned into equity. So that equity will, if we decide to fund it in production, we'll be funding $200,000 next year for production. And equity means it's an investment in the project, and therefore, if you make any money, we expect to share in recouping our investment. So if you did license it after the fact to Netherlands TV and you get $10,000, we would get a portion of that $10,000, and there's a whole formula for how that's calculated. So that's what equity is that we're investing in you like we invest in anything in the stock market, and we hope to have a good return. If you don't make any money, we don't make any money, but if you do, we share in that. And if you do go on and make a television series or a feature film based on the web series, we would also share a small percentage of that, the profits you make from doing that as well.
All right, so let's open it up to questions. Yeah, I'll go ahead.
Sure. Thank you for being here. Firstly, I'll use my equity voice. My question is about being a new producer and essentially finding myself in a bit of a catch-22 situation where when I want to apply for grants, they want to see what I've done, but I can't really do something that's high quality if I don't get the grant. So how do you think we could maybe circumvent that?
The way we try to handle that, because we try to encourage new talent, is seeing who else is on your team. So although you may not have done something before, maybe you'll have an executive producer or a director who has done web series or done things that we can see, and we'll have a little faith in them. Or you have a mentor. Or in our case of the development thing, if you've got a really strong development executive who's going to work closely with you, we're going to have a lot of faith. So you have to have partnerships here. You just really have to team up with somebody. And especially if you don't know the business side of it, you're going to need somebody who already knows how to apply for funding and knows all the tricks. And partnership is what it's all about at that early stage.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. Anybody? No questions? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What about first season? So first season on average doesn't get funded, right? And then currently you get funded for the second season. How's that?
No, if you haven't been funded by us for first season, you haven't been able to qualify for second season funding. And now the way it's working because of this new development program, we will only be funding first seasons. So if you're going to do a second season, you can go to Bell Fund, you can go to the Canada Media Fund, tax credits, other sources. But we're focusing now on first season.
So development and then first season.
Yeah.
That's great. Because that first season was a gap. There wasn't really a whole lot of funding originally for first season. You know, we did second, but now
IPF always did first season.
okay.
Yeah. But we also did some second season. Now we don't. Just scripted, always dramatic scripted. It's a mandate that we had since 1991 when we started doing television.
I know that one of the criteria that you grade is the platform that it's being presented on the channel, and probably the analytics of that channel. But if you're creating a new channel specifically for this series, I'm assuming that hurts it. So are there other ways to kind of, if we have other places to advertise that project, is that kind of thing considered as well?
Of course, if you're doing your own channel, you just want to know how you're going to make sure the world knows about it. And so that's when your marketing plan is going to come in really, really handy. That's what's going to be convincing. Because it's a challenge. It's hard to do it, but it is possible to do it. And we have funded projects where many of them have ended up doing their own channels. But we've had a hard time.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. I know you can't say exactly what the is, but is there a way to tell generally?
Who's on the jury? Yeah. So in the first stage, with the 40 people roughly that we have, it's about half and half advanced media students. So they come from colleges and universities, and they make a lot of sense because that's the core audience for most of the web series. You know, they're the ones that are actually watching it, so they know. And the other half are industry professionals, you know, people who have worked in the industry and hopefully.
More directors, producers?
No, well, a little bit cross-section of everybody, but probably more producers because that's really where we're looking. In the second stage, which is where we pick the finalists for the production funding, in the past we've used an international jury, and those have been, there's about 10 of those that come from around the world, and they are people who are specialists in the web world. So they might be running festivals, they might have created a bunch of web series themselves, so it's a combination, but they are industry professionals at that stage.
Yeah, back there.
What would your best advice be to someone who's coming out of school? What would you give them?
You do have to start somewhere, but as I mentioned earlier, I think starting a web series is a nice way to start, but you should partner with somebody who has had some experience. I also recommend that you don't do your passion project. You know, most students have, you know, the one they really want to do. I always suggest that you don't do that one first. You don't want to be learning on your passion project. So do the next one, make sure you know what you're doing, and then you're ready to do your passion project.
Yeah, in the back.
Hey, so I was just wondering, in terms of all the applications you've seen over the years, the ones that are very close to getting through but didn't eke through, and it's maybe a common mistake, what is that one thing that you could say to people, how they can just nudge past the door in terms of their applications? What is a common mistake that they could easily fix?
You know, it's not a common mistake. There's always something. The evaluators all sit around and talk about these things. The board talks about them and says, you know, is it this one or is it this one? That's, you know, we only have so much money, so we can only fund down to here. And then these two, you know, score 90 and 89. How do you decide between the two? So then there's that whole discussion, and it's a lot of instinct, you know, it's a lot of talking about, well, they have equal ability to fund this, their budgets make sense, is the content standing out in some way? They think that they're going to be on OutTV, but they haven't got that confirmed, but the other guy did get confirmation from Highball TV. You know, so it can sometimes just be a little thing like that that pushes it over the edge. The more support you get when you apply from other places, so if you have platforms, if you have other funders, all of that is very important in influencing the final decision, for sure. So sometimes it comes down to just that little thing where somebody just, you know, didn't have the same support that the next guy had, or the same experience, or, you know, their team wasn't as experienced. It's such little stuff. And if you ever have the opportunity to be on a jury of any kind, I really recommend it, because you learn so much from that experience. You'll see what I'm talking about is, you know, things stand out right away and other things don't. And it's right away. You can just, you know, you read the first page and you see the difference. And then you get a feel very quickly for how that whole process works, whether you like it or don't like it. You know, it's not always the best experience, but it gives you a really good idea of what goes on when you submit your own projects.
And along those same lines, before you submit your project, can you talk a little bit about, you know, the importance of getting feedback and also coming in and speaking to someone at the IPF?
Okay, that's a really good point, yeah. We do give feedback to every project, so whether you're funded or not funded, you can contact us and we'll give you feedback. So using that feedback is your decision. But if you decide to go ahead with the project, you might want to listen to it. And we've had great reaction from people who said, oh my God, that was the most useful thing in the whole process, was just getting the feedback. And a lot of people, I think, actually applied just so they can get feedback. So it's really valuable to follow up and get that kind of feedback and decide yourselves whether you believe it or not. Like we don't give feedback like, if you turned your lead female into a horse, it would probably work better. We don't do that kind of creative feedback, but we give you basic things by saying a horse race would have been more interesting if it was a horse, or something. We do try to give really useful feedback, and the feedback comes from all the evaluators. So we ask all the evaluators to give us their comments. So when we give you feedback, it comes from all the different people who have looked at the project. So it's usually fairly useful. It is possible to come in and talk to us at the office. We've always had open doors, so either before you apply or after you apply, if you want to come in and get to know you, it always helps. You get to know us, it doesn't hurt. And then we know you the next time, and it makes it easier for you and for us if we just know you a little bit. So don't hesitate to call. The only thing is, if you call 20 times with stupid questions, the word gets out in the office. So you can call it 10 times, but 20 is overdoing. So just try to make a good impression when you contact us, and that always helps.
And the office is still at Young and College?
It is for now, but I think it's going to move.
Central
for now. It's there till the end of April for sure, and it might possibly change after that.
Any other questions?
Is it only English language projects that get funded?
French and
French
English, yeah.
Super.
And Sarah?
Yes, you mentioned that a proof of concept is no longer in your submission requirements, but I'm sort of curious, what are some strong, without revealing too much, what are some strong submission examples that you've had?
A proof of concept?
Well, just like, because now you don't,
Yeah,
sorry, that, in
it's
my
harder.
mind, yeah, in my mind, we've had a proof of concept, I'm like, how can we really visualize it if it's all on paper? So with that, without the proof of concept in the,
You're absolutely right. It's going to be a lot harder, and we're kind of sad because we're famous for the trailer season, and it's kind of sad to see that go. So we'll have a 20 trailer season when the finalists do their proof of concept. We're worried about that because the visuals have had a huge impact. But we're going to really focus on the creative and the story editor and development person that we will use. So if you call us and say, my friend has edited my short film at school, so they're a story editor, yeah, they've had experience story editing, but that project probably won't get scored as highly as someone who's done a whole bunch of series or a bunch of television. And we're just going to have a lot of faith in the quality of the team. So creative still has to stand out in writing, which is even harder. It's really hard to make that creative zing without showing the visuals. So that's going to be a test, and the team. That's really, those are the main elements of it. It's going to be hard. I won't be there.
Any other questions?
The development phase, the new phase one, is it going to be locked to a specific you mentioned it's going to be about 3 months? Is it going to be 3 particular months, or could it be 3 months of my choosing?
It is actually particular in months in the sense that the application deadline is March 1st, as always. The shortlist will be in early April, as always. The requirement for all the deliverables will be September 30th, because on October 1st will be the deadline for production. So somewhere between April and October 1st, you have to do all your development and be ready to apply for production. And even if you don't intend to apply for production, your deliverables have to be delivered by the end of September, or you don't get paid the last day. We're also trying to ensure that people focus on development, use the money and do it right. You don't have to, but again, a lot of blanks is going to be harder to compute, you know? So it is just going to be a stronger application if you have your whole team in place. But if you've got a great creator with lots of experience, a great director, and a star that's amazing, and a great story editor, and then you can list, these are the 3 or 4 people that might be our producers, that would be fine. And it might, you know, as long, I have to come back to creative. When the creative stands out and people get excited about the creative, they can live with a lot of weaknesses in other areas.
Sorry, I just want to say, can you all please project a little bit? I have no idea what your question was, and the answer sounded really interesting. We don't have mics, so we really have to, you know, work here. So
Sorry,
please.
her question was,
Could you also
have
repeat
to
the
have
question?
a
Yeah.
producer when you apply.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So if you could talk a little bit more about the development executive new role. What sort of things are you looking for in that role? Like, is it more creative focused, more marketing focused?
Yeah, it's more creative focused, for sure. If you think of broadcasters who have development executives, typically for television, they're people that get really down and dirty with you in the script and in the editing of the script and in helping you find the right performers for the roles. So that's what we're looking for, is people who have experience in doing that, who know how to help you down and dirty. The business side, we can help with. You know, there's a lot of people out there now. There's workshops, there's books, you know, but it's the creative that's really going to have to be the pressure point.
Anybody else? Yeah.
What's your experience been with children's programming?
We're actually trying to encourage more of it. We've only done a couple. We're doing one this year that's just been funded. But it's the opportunities there are amazing. That's big, I think, because kids watch, and they'll go on YouTube and they'll find it somehow. So I would encourage more kid stuff for sure.
Anybody else? Yep.
So earlier you mentioned how some very niche genre groups do well with niche markets and having influence. In terms of applications, what do you think matters more, having broader appeal that's not as like having broader appeal, or having that really intense niche fandom?
You know, I think the niche fandom is a better sell, because you can really target your audience and you can find them and you can prove to us where they are, and I think that's a good sell. And we're not looking for gazillions of people. We just want the right people to see the project. And what we hate is the marketing plans that say, you know, this is designed for 18 to 25-year-olds, but it'll really appeal to everybody. That doesn't work. You know, that's just not, you know, it's not real. You mean a 7-year-old's going to like it? Is that everybody? So be very careful that you know your audience. And we're perfectly happy if you also say, you know, my audience is going to be these 25 people in each country because they're specifically interested in this topic. As long as you know that and you're telling us that. But if we know that it's 25 people and you say, oh, we think 1 million people are going to watch this, then, you know, we see the discrepancy there right away. It won't work.
And sometimes I think it's hard for creators to know what their audience is when they're filling out these applications. Do you have any tips in terms of figuring that out?
There are people who are experts in this. I don't know if any of you attended the workshop that we funded last week, Magnify Digital's lab. It was, Magnify Digital is a company out of BC, so it's just one, I'm giving you an example. And there's Annalise Larson, there's Debbie Day. There's a lot of people who know how to take your creative and find your audience. They know how to define it, at least. And that's a real art and a real skill. And there are ways of doing it. There's actually computer programs that will help you do it too. When you put in the right keywords for your project, it'll tell you who your audience is. So there are ways to do this, but it's hard for you to do it if you're not an expert in it, and that's where you do need the expertise. And before you start producing, that's when you need to know who your audience is. It's number one thing. Know your audience before.
And go ahead.
Does your funding program have certain requirements in terms of, for example, ensuring that 10% of the
No, we don't have any of those social political policies at all. Our mandate is to fund the best. And interestingly, we get a spread. You know, we get English French spread, we get a few regional ones. It's actually interesting that it happens naturally, but we don't force it. And but we did look back in the last few years, and we were really impressed by how many women, how many the LGBT, you know, everything was there. It was pretty good, but it's not required.
So we're going to start to wrap this up, but so 28 years as the CEO, what's really stood out for you for things that you're extra, you know, proud of that you were able to work on professionally or personally, or you know, whichever.
I've been very lucky in the career I've had because I've been able to found, just set up new things, and that for me has always been a thrill. You know, I set up the Academy, Canadian Cinema and Television, which didn't exist, and that's the thrill for me. And I set up the Bell Fund, and I set up the IPF, and I set up the Cogeco Fund. And personally, for me, just starting new things is my big thrill. I also stayed 28 years doing the old things, so I have stamina too, right?
And I mean, for a lot of people, just, you know, making a short film or a web series seems kind of overwhelming, but you know, created the Academy and these funds. How, like, what's the first step for you? How do you know, like, how do you just begin a fund? I don't understand.
I don't recommend you all start doing this. I've been in the right place at the right time, you know. With the Academy, I was working at the film festival, and the closing night of the film festival was the Old Canadian Film Awards. And Bill Marshall, who was the director of the festival at the time, hated the Old Film Awards and thought we should do a peer group Academy-style voting. And so he said, let's go set up an Academy. And so I was available, and we had meetings with, you know, Al Waxman was one of the original founders. We had a bunch of the people who were active in the industry at the time. We used to meet in the green room of King of Kensington. So, you know, that it just got the ball rolling. It just takes someone who writes the minutes, you know, does the agenda, calls everybody to come to the meetings. You know, that's really, it's administration is what it is. The Independent Production Fund, they needed somebody part-time. I wasn't working full-time, I just had a child. So they remembered me, they called me and said, do you want to work part-time? Yeah, that sounded good. So I got to set up the IPF, and that was, you know, really starting from scratch too. They had the mandate, but nothing else. So it was finding an office and finding chairs, you know, it was really basic. Then once I was doing the IPF, the Bell Fund thing, we knew that the Bell Fund was happening, and they actually put out a call for who wants to administer this. So I was in competition with the then CMF, I think, and I won.
Congratulations.
So we got to administer the Bell Fund. Cogeco came to us because they knew some of the people on the board. And, you know, so I've just been in the right places at the right time to make things happen, and I don't know how many more new things can happen. I feel like, you know, I've done all the new things and there's nothing left.
And also, I mean, being a leader for so long, like, do you have any advice for people in leadership positions who are, you know, at the face of an organization?
Good question. You know, I think probably part of what I've enjoyed the most is meeting all of you guys and having relationships with so many people. And I think that's paid off in many ways because you know me, I know you. You probably, hopefully, spread the word that I'm okay to talk to. Don't be scared. And I think that's really important in this kind of industry, is that we have those kinds of relationships because it makes things work a lot better. We all have to have models. I have, you know, a couple of great models that were my mentors. They probably don't even know they were my mentors, but I would watch them and learn from what they did and how they did it. And it's really great if you can identify somebody that you want to be like them when you grow up. And it's really very helpful. You know, leadership skills are, you have to have integrity if you really want people to appreciate you and know that they can trust you. I think those are things that, you know, leadership requires. But you have to have fun too. So I really suggest to all of you that whatever you do, enjoy it.
All right, well, thank you so much. We have something for you. Rodney, the president of the IWCC, is going to come up. And yeah, on behalf of everyone, thank you.
We don't get to do this very often, see.
Wait, the camera
this is
can't
our
see
very
it.
first award.
The camera can't see it. Move backwards. There we go.
It's the IWCC Trailblazer Award for Andra Sheffer. Thank you for your many years of support. And of course,